1-2, swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert, back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Morel. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. It is Christmas time, as you can tell by John's background. John, I love the polo.
Yes, sir.
And the cup. This is great. I'm feeling festive. I just knocked over a Charlie Brown tree. Yeah, I was trying to get to something to stand my laptop on, and the box that it was under, that cratered, and down goes the tree. So now I'm feeling very Grinch-like. But hey, let's get into it. So we've been out for, I guess, a couple weeks. And so in the meantime, Thanksgiving has come and gone. We'll get into a fun little Thanksgiving thing in a second. A couple news bullets to rattle off here. Aaron Nola went to the Phillies on a 7-year, $172 million deal. There's one starting pitcher fish out of the sea that's been reeled in back to where he just was. Sonny Gray went to the Cardinals. The Cardinals also signed Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. So they didn't get a whole lot better. They did get a lot better with Sonny Gray. He signed a 3-year, $75 million deal. And just today, Luis Severino agreed to a 1-year deal with the Mets. So good pickup for them, although he's injured quite a bit. But for the Cardinals, I would say them adding a few pitchers didn't raise their ceiling too much. And the last point here for around the horn for the MLB, Brandon Woodruff was non-tendered, which would have been an $11 million deal. He's non-tendered and is undergoing a shoulder surgery. He's recovering and will likely not pitch this year, potentially at the end of the year. He will for sure pitch in 2025, and he's looking to sign essentially a 2-year deal. So he's still remaining a free agent at this point of the time of recording. It is the middle of the week here at the end of November. Actually, a couple more bullets. There's a lot of stuff's happened. And by a lot of stuff, I mean not very much. One little tidbit of information we got from Sahadev Sharma and Patrick Mooney of The Athletic. The Cubs are willing to add to their bullpen on a longer-term deal, potentially. Who knows how much a longer-term deal is, but they have been connected to Robert Stevenson, who pitched for the Pirates, and he also pitched for the Rays last year after he got traded. In 38 innings pitched, he had a .68 whip, which is incredible, and a 2.35 ERA. So he had a higher ERA with the Pirates last year, although in other, in other years, he showed up pretty well. But when he did get traded to the Rays, he looked really, really, really good. The Cubs did sign a player. I'm not sure if I believe this is a minor league signing, but potentially he's getting an invite to spring training and he'll get a look for the Major League bullpen. They signed Edwin Escobar of I think it's Nippon Professional Baseball League in Japan, the NPB. The NPB is a nice little theme we're seeing here in terms of the free agents, lots of NPB Japanese pitchers. Edwin Escobar actually pitched in the major leagues, did not do well. When he went to Japan, he pitched very, very well out of the bullpen. 65 innings pitched per year, 3.17 ERA in 6 seasons. And he also averaged a 1.2 whip, which isn't spectacular, but it's pretty solid. Flashes about a mid-90s fastball. Again, he's a lefty, so he's got a funky arm angle, and he's a lefty, so the Cubs could use him if he ends up looking good. That's all I've got for sort of some housekeeping and news bullets for the last couple weeks. It's been a very slow, very, very, very slow, agonizing offseason, to say the least. I think that's due in part to the Cubs being connected to everybody. They're connected to tons of different pitchers. They were connected to trades. We will get into the 2 players they're connected to most recently. One of them is not Bo Bichette, even though he was connected to the Cubs very recently. So clearly the Cubs have been busy making phone calls. But in order for us to just get this pod started, I'd like to play a game called Keep or Trade. Since Thanksgiving was last Thursday, I thought I would rattle off a couple questions to my brother here, Brother John. He's not a pastor,
No,
but that's what we call him. We just call him Brother John. No. Uh, so let's talk Thanksgiving. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
I did. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good, and this is a perfect segue because we had mac and cheese for the
Mhm.
first time ever at Thanksgiving, and I thought this would be a good place to start. John, keep or trade for Thanksgiving, mac and cheese or stuffing?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say keep the stuffing and trade the mac and cheese. I think the stuffing goes well with other things. You can pair it with mashed potatoes and gravy.
Yeah,
You could pair it with turkey. I mean, mac and cheese, you can't really pair with a whole lot of other things by
right.
itself. Stands alone great, but what do you think?
I'm gonna agree, although I like mac and cheese more as a dish. Um, how about green bean casserole or mashed potatoes and gravy?
That's a little bit easier for me, although in recent years I've started to appreciate green bean casserole more.
Mhm.
I would say keep mashed potatoes and trade green bean casserole.
That's fair. What about turkey and I'm talking, let's just say a drier turkey. So like a not super well cooked turkey or a salad.
Oh man. You got some
Talking
tough
dry.
ones.
I had a very
Yeah.
dry turkey this Thanksgiving, so
Oh
I wanted
man.
to.
I'm sorry about that. Mine was the complete opposite. So
Oh, good,
yeah.
good. I
You're like,
hate
oh,
you
you're like, I'm happy. You're like, good, good. I hate you now.
now.
Um, I would say, I think you got to stick it out with the dry turkey. I think, it's like you got to show you got to show your loyalty to whoever cooked the turkey and whoever put themselves through that mess.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of tough, but I mean, I would say keep the dry turkey.
Okay.
Nobody's eating salad on Thanksgiving.
What about what about I'm just gonna throw one out there now. Don't have one written down. I'm trying to think. What about mashed potatoes or rolls?
Mm,
Both are carbs, both good.
yeah.
Both will fill you up.
Are they buttered?
No,
Or
but
they're
there's an option to. You just got to get someone to reach across the table or pass down the butter, just as
are
you would the
they
gravy.
I think I'm gonna go with mashed potatoes. I really love mashed potatoes.
I was gonna say this man loves his taters.
So I love my taters.
So okay, another one. Either the IDF, the Israeli army, or Hamas. No.
Wait, I was like, what? Say that again.
That's it. I was just throwing out a current political event type.
Yeah.
I was saying Israel or Palestine. I'm just kidding. No, we don't have to. I just wanted to throw out a random one that you weren't expecting and wanted to see your reaction.
I definitely wasn't expecting that one. Yeah.
Let's get into a more serious portion of the game. The Cubs are looking at trading for Tyler Glasnow of the Tampa Bay Rays or
Mhm,
potentially Shane Bieber of the Cleveland Guardians. Didn't say
mhm.
Indians, it's the Guardians. I don't know. I always forget. I have to remind myself Guardians, Guardians, Guardians. So if you're the Cubs, you're obviously going to target one of those two pitchers. Now, if you're getting either one before we get into that part of it, would you keep or trade Owen Casey or Kevin Alcantara?
Hmm. Just because I'm more familiar with him, Owen Casey, I think his slug is maybe a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's more potential with him with Owen Casey.
Yeah. It's
I'm very high on Alcantara. I
yeah,
just don't know. He's maybe one of those pieces that I would trade over Owen Casey if I had to choose.
sure.
What are your thoughts?
I like that you mentioned potential about Casey, because what's interesting about Kevin Alcantara is his big thing is potential. That is sort of what he's viewed as is potential because of his long limbs. Sort of, I'm trying to see how tall he is here. I guess I need to go to bio. He's 6'6", so he's
Yeah.
really tall. He
I
plays.
always pegged him as a basketball player, but I mean, baseball
Yeah.
seemed to work out too. So
He's got a career 812 OPS. He, to be honest, his last year was an 810 OPS, although he only played 5 games in Tennessee, aka a cup of coffee is what they call it. So looks like Casey actually has better numbers overall, and I think he's more major league ready. However, there's two things there. Casey's got a left-handed bat, but Alcantara, I think, is viewed as a speedier, more of a defensive outfielder. So
he's
there's two
righty.
different. What's that?
He's a righty.
I mean, yeah, you've got Alcantara as a righty and Casey as a lefty. So ultimately, a lefty bat I think is a little bit more coveted. So I might have to agree with you, although I think that's a close one. Let's move on to a different one. Keep or trade Matt Shaw and James Triantos.
Ooh, I like Matt Shaw. I think Triantos has a lot of buzz around him right now. The AFL MVP.
Yeah.
With Matt Shaw, I think you're able to move him around the diamond, and you could possibly try him out at third base. Even though he's a shortstop, and I think maybe played a little bit at second base. I would say more so Shaw. Keep Shaw, trade Triantos.
Right. I think I'd have to agree with you there. James Triantos per MLB.com is the number 9 prospect for the Cubs. Matt Shaw is the number 6, even though he was just drafted this year.
Mm-hmm.
In 2023, he compiled a 1018 OPS with 8 home runs and 28 RBIs, which is really impressive considering he played 38 games.
And he's ascended rather quickly, right?
Yes, and that is a little bit what I'm scared about, is that he hasn't gotten time to get settled in and get into a funk. He only has 157 at bats. So really we're looking at a very, very small sample. Mm-hmm. However, he did have 65 at bats at Tennessee, so even more than Kevin Alcantara. So clearly the Cubs like what they're seeing so far. I believe he did play second and a little bit of short, but I know they want him to play third. I'm curious to see how he looks at third. To me, his value is going to come if he plays third well and he plays at the higher levels. He may start at AA, but get to AAA quickly. I don't think he'll make it to the bigs next year, but he could in an emergency utility role. We just have to see more of the same thing, and obviously with a full season. Let's see one more full season of Shaw, and I think let's see what he's got. Once you get him to struggle a little bit, how quickly does he recover? All right, I've got, I think, one more for you here. Hayden McGeary versus Matt Mervis, keep or trade?
Ooh, you got two first basemen. Yeah. I would say trade Mervis, keep McGeary, just because I've seen what Mervis can do at the major league level, although it's a very limited sample size. I was looking for more of an impact from him when he did come up for that, whatever it was, 10 or 12 games. It wasn't a whole lot that he was at the major league level, but I mean, McGeary, there's a lot of buzz around McGeary as well.
You said keep McGeary?
I would honestly keep McGeary if I'm trading Mervis for a legit starting pitcher like a Glasnow.
Yeah.
Or maybe a Bieber, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd go the other way. However, I've only because we've seen in 2022, Mervis had 36 homers and 40 doubles. I mean, he had a ridiculous season. Last year, he had a little bit of a worse season because he bounced around. And I think I'm not sure which of them has more potential. Both of them have a lot of potential, and Mervis is a lefty at bat, and he did look good defensively.
He did. Yeah.
Mervis did strike out a lot. His OPS was low. He had 90 at bats. He only had a few homers. So what I'd like to see from McGeary is to keep elevating the ball more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to scout out and see what his strikeout rate was last year. He did have 121 strikeouts in 437 at bats, which I guess, let's see. He did that at high A and double A, and he actually logged quite a bit of time at double A. He logged 361 at bats, so he almost got a full season out of double A. So I really like to see what McGeary does at triple A before I am completely sold or not. However, I thought that was a tough one. I'm glad that kind of stumped you a bit because you and I are going back and forth on that. Another name to probably think about in terms of power hitters is, Alexander Canario. But now that we've kind of discussed some profits, now that we've discussed the profits of Christmas, now that we've discussed the prospects, some of the top 30 prospects for the Cubs kind of got our prospect juices flowing. I was curious if you had an idea of what you think the Cubs should trade for Tyler Glasnow, for instance. Or first of all, before we get into who we want to give up for, in a trade for one of these two aces, I was curious which of the two you wanted to trade for, Glasnow or Bieber.
All right. Well, Zach, to answer your question. No?
Gotcha.
All right. So this is who I would trade for first and foremost is Glasnow. The reason being for me is that I feel like his impact is stronger as a starter, and I feel like we need more of an ace level pitcher. No offense to Shane Bieber, whose nickname on MLB.com is not Justin. ERA, if you look at their ERA, it's close. I mean, Glasnow has a little bit better ERA compared to last year. This is 2023. The innings pitched are pretty similar. The Ks are way up there. Glasnow has 152 to 107. But the same amount of walks. And then the average for the hitters is 209 versus 253. So pretty good. They're not really hitting a whole lot off of him. Now, one thing to note, obviously, the Indians and Rays are two different teams. So if you were to put Shane Bieber on that Rays team and switch him with Tyler Glasnow, you might see different numbers. I mean, I'm sure you would definitely see a little bit different numbers, but you're comparing the offense, which is fourth best in the entire majors for the Rays versus fourth worst compared to the Guardians. So there is definitely,
I don't know if I'm following the offense part of it. What is your
when you're talking about, for example, that could vary in terms of confidence, that could vary in terms of understanding you have a chance to win.
Okay. No, I follow.
I think that affects how your stats end up.
Yeah. I mean, also Glasnow faced, I don't know about the balanced schedule and how that impacts it, but Glasnow is in a much harder division than Shane Bieber. So think about it, Bieber should have a similar, if not better, ERA.
Bieber should have a better ERA. Yeah. So that's exactly, I mean, that's not even one of my points, but that even proves my point further as far as trading for Glasnow. Glasnow has faced some pretty tough hitters in the AL East with the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Orioles
even.
So I mean,
were good this
the
year.
Orioles, yeah, exactly. So they're facing those teams, at least twice as much as the Bieber.
Sure.
Bieber and the Guardians. So I do like Shane Bieber. I don't think he's a scrub of any kind. I think he's probably third. He's like a solid, like a 3 or a 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's an ace.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need a bigger impact starting pitcher Glasnow, obviously the injury history is there. A little bit of injury history with Bieber as well. You don't really have more than 100, I think 120 or 130 innings out of Glasnow per year.
Yeah, that's the big issue with him.
That is the big issue. So I think to your point that you had mentioned before, when you were texting me, was it would make sense, I think, for Glasnow to be in a 6-man rotation so that his arm is able to hold up and preserve, and you have more of an impact, I think, with him in a 6-man rotation versus a 5-man rotation.
Agreed.
What are your thoughts? Oh, do you want me to keep going as far as who I would trade for him?
I would dive right into the trade, and then once you get through that, I'll provide a little bit more a deep dive on that.
So I didn't include, I think I'm missing Triantos in here as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll just kind of go with what I noted here. So these are a mix of major league players versus minor league players. Morel, Happ, Tauchman, Suzuki, Canario have all seen, even PCA have seen major league pitching at some point. Personally, I highlighted the ones that we would keep in red and blue.
Mhm.
So, for example, obviously Happ, Tauchman, Suzuki, Canario. I think Canario showed a lot of promise as a hitter last year, albeit it was very small sample size. But Morel, I would trade. Brennan Davis, I would trade. I think he's had plenty of time. I mean, I know he's been injured as well, but his impact, I think, I don't think he's going to have a whole lot of impact at the major league level. Jordan Wogu, I think, is also one that I would part with. I don't know if I would part with PCA, Owen Casey, Cole Roederer, Kevin Alcantara, Matt Mervis. I don't know if I would part with those.
You wouldn't part with them?
I wouldn't, because I've seen he had major power last summer. I think one game I think he has a lot of potential.
I mean, among all the outfielders, though, he's the one.
He's one that you could stick in there. But I didn't list him because I think Tampa Bay is looking for. I mean, if you throw in Morel plus one or two of these players, I think that would get the job done.
Yeah.
I could throw in Cole Roederer. I think there's a lot of potential for power.
He's extremely expendable, though. He's one of the most expendable players in the farm. He's not even 30.
Now, this is of course, like right now, like who I would give away right now. I could let him rake at AAA and then even save him for another deal down the line, maybe a reliever.
Yeah, there's certainly the way this offseason has gone with all the rumors, this certainly feels like there could be multiple deals. They could make multiple trades because of the health. There are so many outfielders. You could trade Roederer.
You could trade, yeah. I think I mean, I could go back and forth on that. I definitely want to. I think I want to get rid of Morel, because I think he's just expendable. You have possibly an Ohtani coming in, not to jinx it or anything. It is a big F. But I mean, it's a possibility. The pitchers of who I want to keep personally, I want to keep Assad, even though I think they're going to want him in a deal because he's proven to pitch really well at the major league level. He's young, so that's definitely appealing. Cade Horton, Jordan Wicks, I would keep them as well. Wisniewski, I would get rid of Wisniewski, Palencia, Thompson, and Rucker. I think they're going to want young pitching. So I think if you put together some combination of maybe 3 to 4 of these players, maybe a Morel, Wisniewski, and Palencia, I think that gets the job done because Glasnow does have injury history. I don't think he's going to cost a whole lot. I think they'd be looking to still add some pop to their lineup with Christopher Morel because they're going to want to trade, or it's rumored that they're going to want to trade Randy Arozarena.
Yeah, that was another rumor that just came out today. Tons of rumors have been bouncing around.
Right. Now, if we expand the deal to Randy Arozarena, then yeah, I would be willing to even include someone like PCA in the deal, because you're getting a center fielder back in Randy Arozarena.
I think so, yeah. I would agree.
I'm hesitant because I'm hesitant because I do envision PCA on the base pass at like first base, taking a walk, and then Ohtani coming up and hitting him home with like a double or a single.
Sure. Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, you want him up there to be able to get that WAR even when he's not hitting like crazy. He's gonna make a good play and make a good throw in center field, and then he's gonna be a prototypical leadoff hitter. That's what you want for sure.
I'm kind of curious to see if Tampa parts with someone other than Tyler Glasnow to, maybe a Nate Lowe.
Oh yeah, I saw that bounce. Or I think is it Brandon Lau? I think Nate Lau's on the Rangers.
Oh,
yeah, there's a lot of Laus.
There's a lot of Laus. Josh Lau.
Yeah,
one of those Laus.
I think Josh and Nate are brothers or something, and Brandon's a separate Lau.
Brandon Lau, yeah.
He's a third base option, yeah. First base
there, yeah. So hot corners. Like I said, I want to keep the reason why I want to keep Javier Assad is I think you want him as insurance. You don't really know how Cade Horton's going to respond as far as the AAA level. Obviously
the level.
Or the big league level. I mean, first he's going to probably go to AAA. And then he was at AA last year. So, I mean, I would think he would go to AAA, but
I think it'll be quick, but I agree. I think there's definitely more pitching here, at least fill-in pitching we've had in many years. It feels like there's lots of options. I do like the idea of throwing Thompson in that trade just because he's a former starter and they could go multiple different options with him, especially with he has a very versatile repertoire. He throws a cutter, curveball, slider, 93 to 95. He's got some good weapons the Rays could utilize. Palencia, I would like to keep as many bullpen arms as I can, but if it helps get the deal done, by all means, especially if it limits the amount of starters we give up. And
I think, and that's also, I mean, a lot of this is contingent upon what the Cubs do in free agency because they are, again, players in Josh Hader. So
technically, I think they're closer to the Stevenson range just because he may only get a 2-year deal and it may only be for $7 or $8 million a year. We just saw another bullet that I didn't make a point on earlier was Emilio Pagan went to the Reds on a 2-year deal, I think worth $8 million a year. Supposedly he's the richest Reds player on the roster now, which is crazy. They really went into rebuild and prospect mode quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see the Cubs making a Stevenson move. Would love for them to make a Hader move because of his connection to Craig Counsell. But if they do, obviously, if they end up trading Danny Palencia, they're going to be more aggressive in that bullpen market for sure because they're going to need to fill what would have been, I don't want to say a stable arm, but would have at least been an arm at the major league level next year. So I agree. And the Wisniewski thing is interesting to me because he's got a lot of potential and I think he could go in a move. And I think someone like him could go with Thompson and let's say Morel, because you're putting a guy like Morel who's got lots of control pre-arb or arbitration years ahead of him before he hits the market. I think it's 4 years or something like that. Something crazy because I think they're controlled for 6 years once they come up. So Morel's got lots of control. The Rays don't need to do a lot with Morel if they got him in a trade. All they need to do is get his strikeout rate down below 30% and get his walk rate up a little. And he's shown at times he's had a good eye at times. He does strike out a lot, though. He needs to have a little bit better control, but his bat speed's incredible. He's a slugger. He's fast. The Rays would probably need to DH him until they find a spot for him. So I could see the Cubs trying to get another piece in there if they give up a little bit more. But I could also see Morel being sort of a limiter in terms of what you need to give up for pitching. You could hedge your bet on the pitching side of it. That way you could keep as many pitchers as you can, because as we discussed earlier, Tyler Glasnow needs to join a 6-man rotation for the Cubs. He just had 120 innings pitched, and that was his season high, which is pretty scary to think about. The other end to this we haven't discussed as much is that Shane Bieber was a star, bona fide strikeout machine in 19 and 20. I think 21 he started to fall off, and then 22 and 23 strikeout rate has sort of plummeted as well as his fastball. So I could see the Cubs not really wanting to trade for Shane Bieber because they need strikeout pitchers. They need ace level stuff, and while Bieber used to be that, he doesn't have what they need in terms of like a number 2 level starter right now to pair with Justin Steele.
I agree.
I was just going to say Shane Bieber is much more reliable in terms of his injury history compared to Tyler Glasnow.
I was just going to say that, looking at the last 4 years of his strikeouts per 9 innings, they've gone down significantly. I think the last year it was something like 7 Ks per 9 innings. So, I mean, not a great strikeout to, innings pitched for ratio.
Sure.
Per ratio, if I'm saying that right. So I like the impact that Glasnow has versus Bieber. I think he just gives us that type of ace that we need right now. If we don't sign a big time free agent, someone like Snell hasn't been mentioned, in any trade discussion, or not trade discussion, free agent discussions.
Sure.
So I'm really curious to see once Yamamoto signs, once Ohtani signs, and all of these pitchers come off the market, where is Snell going to go? Because he's also one that we could snatch up if we don't get Yamamoto or Ohtani. You could pay big money to Snell.
Get the brothers back on the rotation. I'm talking Snell, Glasnow, Tampa Bay Rays 2020.
Yeah.
Rotation mates, the 1 and 2s that went to the World Series together. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Right.
Glasnow is owed $25 million next year on his last year of his deal. The Rays backloaded his contract so that they could trade him because they're cheap. Blake Snell is a free agent. However, he will likely command $25 million or over. Now, if the Cubs end up with those two, as opposed to, let's say, Ohtani or Yamamoto, that's a tremendous hedge against having to go out and try and sign multiple pitchers. How about if they trade for one and sign another? And that way they have acquired those two. And then that way, if Tyler Glasnow gets injured, which he's shown to do quite a bit, you'd still have Steele and Snell at the top of your rotation, which is really good. And of course, the farm is coming in to supplement the latter half of it. There's a lot to like there in terms of these trade rumors. The Cubs, as you show on your screen here, Johnny, have got quite a few options in terms of major league ready pitching. Mm-hmm. The Rays have said to covet major league ready pitching. That would be Keegan Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
And,
also, what about this guy?
They're not trading him. He probably has either no trade or they can't. Jameson Taillon was on the screen. Jameson Taillon has still a few more years on his deal, and he was not great last year. They'll need to optimize him in the back of the rotation. But in terms of major league ready starters, or guys not only could pitch in the bullpen or could eat multiple innings, Wisniewski, Assad, Brown, Wicks, Thompson, those guys can all eat lots of innings, and they're major league ready. Cade Horn's not major league ready, but he's going to be untouchable in this trade discussion.
Yeah,
I could see with the Cubs holding on to a guy like Wicks or Brown or Assad in order to keep a 6-man rotation. They're going to need Hendricks, Taillon, Steele, a couple other arms, and one of those dudes, Brown, Assad, Wicks. They're going to need those guys in the back of the rotation to hold it down in potentially a 6-man rotation if they're going to keep Glasnow. Otherwise, they're risking another major injury with him. He's been injured a lot, but he is an ace. strikeout rate high, his walk rate is low. And like you mentioned, his batting average against, that's another key statistic. Guys are only hitting, close to 200 off him. That goes to show that Glasnow is what you need in an ace potential level. You should keep him healthy. And I assume the Cubs would do something like that when Ohtani becomes healthy. If they did require Ohtani in this offseason in 2025 when he pitched, I'm sure Ohtani would be in a 6-man rotation. So the Cubs need to think about going to 6-man rotation going forward if they acquire Glasnow or Ohtani or any other injury-plagued pitchers.
That's all I have. What about you, Zachary?
That's all I've got too. I think this is a great discussion, and we just had Thanksgiving, and now right here we're about to hit the winter meetings this Sunday or this Monday. It's coming up very quickly. It's fast approaching, and I'm really hoping some dominoes start to fall and we see some action, and then we get to discuss a Cubs signing. That would be terrific to discuss, not just potential trades or prospects or keeper trade this, keeper trade that. Israel, Hamas. We're discussing actual players, actual deals, get something tangible in our hands, roll it around like some Play-Doh. Let's shape it into something. What's it going to look like? And not just all pure speculation. The speculation stuff sure is fun, but it'd be really great to actually talk about some hype for a new signing.
I agree.
All right. Well, we are out of time here. This has been the Brotherly Cubs podcast. Have a great week, great weekend. And now that we're getting close here, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.